Artyom! Artyom, is that you? It is you! My son! How many times have I told you? There is nothing up on the surface for us. Come now, my son. We must go. There are things up here. Unimaginable things. How is your air filter? Here, son. Take mine. Take mine. Here. Now hurry. I don't have much time. We must make it back to the underground metro. And plus I have to go to the street club. Come on, let's go! Artyom, run! Run, Artyom! Artyom, go!
Oh crap! Now, to really understand Metro, you need to experience the game where it immerses you in an oppressive, hopeless, bleak world where the surface is a deadly wasteland. Tunnels are shared with disgusting, hairy, spider-like mutants. Metros are filled with the suffering and sick people crying as they scavenge for spoiled food. You can't help but feel the boobs, strippers, and lap dances! Rain up in this metro! Metro! Fire! Okay, I just had to get that out of the way. Metro has a really out of place segment in it where it just throws nudity at you because, you know, sex. Metro Last Light is engaging, it's intense, it's filled with heavy atmosphere and a surprising variety of level design and significant improvements to combat. It mixes first-person shooting, survival horror, and reflective exploration and eavesdropping segments in populated metro cities with just excellent gameplay. Oh, and it also helps that the visuals are among the best. Jaw-dropping even, especially on PC.
In the past, trains were ordinary things, but now, this monorail seems magic, doesn't it? Our kids won't know how to operate these things, and their kids will probably think this was built by the gods.
It's an improvement in nearly every category from its predecessor, Metro 2033, and I'd recommend this game as your starting point if you've never played the other, even if you may be a bit lost to why some of these factions exist. Now you play as Artyom, a member of the peacekeeping group called the Order, and carried over from the first game, you were single-handedly responsible for the death of millions of Dark Ones, a mysterious race who had inhabited the poison surface world as humanity withdrew to the underground metro. And it's there that three main groups are vying for control. the capitalist Hansa, the Nazis, and the communist Reds. And all of them want D9, an underground bunker that your faction, the Neutral Rangers, control. Now, after you wake, it's your mission to kill the last remaining Dark One, who turns out to be just a baby, and may in fact possibly hold the key to stopping the rest of humanity from tearing each other apart.
1. Glory to the Red Line!
2.
Long live Comrade Moskvin! 3.
Please! Please, I'll talk. I'll talk. But away from the other side. They'll kill me if they hear. Okay?
It is a fascinating and interesting story, even if you don't have the full context as to why these various factions exist. They just sort of do. But it keeps you engaged the whole way through, with some tense behind enemy lines moments, plot twists and turns, and very disturbing scenes of the worst that humanity is capable of doing to each other.
But we're not even feverish. We're...
Especially when a virus is unleashed on unsuspecting civilians. Now, mixed into the bursts of all-out gunfights are moments where you spend time in the metro stations just taking in everything, eavesdropping on the locals, hearing fascinating tales of what's going on in this world. And it's often sad to overhear some of the stories from the citizens.
Come here, darling. Don't look there.
What's that, Papa?
Nothing. It's all right. Just don't look.
When are we going to go home?
Soon. Very soon.
Where's Mommy? Where did they take her?
Mama's home already. We'll be with her soon.
I miss her. I want to go see her now.
You will. but in just a little bit.
One station even has a full theater performance, and this stuff is never forced on you. It can even be skipped completely. These small touches really add to the experience. At one point you visit Venice, which is the cultural capital of Metro. Now, it's here that the game has one of its only missteps in the story. For almost no reason at all, you're suddenly in a strip club and pulled aside for one of the most explicit, detailed lap dances in a video game, like ever. Now, I'm not against sex or boobies or anything in games. I just prefer it when it has context in the game, like Mass Effect or Witcher 2. But here, it just feels like a juvenile excuse to show some titties! Ass, titties. Ass, and titties. Ass, titties. Ass, and titties. You see that image? That's probably the developers as they're making this part of the game. They're like, ass, titties. Ass, and titties. Ass, titties. Ass, and titties. You know, you need some context in your game, okay? That's the way I feel about it, at least as I've grown older.
She's got a slot for those. Hey baby, I got a pole for you to dance around.
It's just a bit jarring when you just waded through such suffocating hopelessness and despair, and then you suddenly feel like you're transported into a Duke Nukem game.
Oh my god.
So, would you like some more?
In fact, now that I think about it, all the women in the game are sexualized. I mean, your romantic interest, Anna, feels a bit forced and convenient. She is literally the only female soldier in the whole game, and she gives you the cold soldier for no reason at all at the beginning.
Don't tell me you believe that bullshit about making peace with the Dark Ones. I wish I had been up in that tower myself to see the missiles fall and watch them burn in their nests.
Then does a complete 180 in her personality when she reappears later.
It's hard for me to tell you these things, Artyom. But I want to feel that I'm alive.
As she seems like a wasted opportunity for some real romantic attachment in the game, even furthering the atmosphere. Instead, she's really just there for a pit to fall out of her shirt when she sits on your lap. You catch a peek there. It's borderline exploitative. Exploitive.
Touch me.
Other characters, though, in the game fare much better, including the villains and a few helpful friends along the way, notably your musketeer friend Pavel.
Опа! That's great! So, let's drink, Artyom! Фу, хорошо прошла. Smooth stuff, huh?
He's one of the best characters in the game and has a hell of a story arc.
That's the way to do it, bro! Just like the Three Musketeers, if they were two of them. You ever read the book? Really confusing, but I fucking love it. Always wanted to be Athos. You can be D'Artagnan, huh? Alright, we're short on time. We go to theater from here, then you off to police. I head back home to the Red Light, okay?
There's this great surprising variety in the gameplay in a post-apocalyptic world, in the levels. And when you're not battling the worst of humanity, you're encountering some pretty scary things. I mean, this new world has spawned some very sick and mutated beasts who hunger for human flesh and who will give you the creepy crawlies, up the back of your neck, as much as any good horror game can, especially with the giant scorpion spider hybrids who are only vulnerable to your flashlight. So keeping it charged by hand, cranking it while keeping it fixed on one monstrosity at a time is scary but easy enough. But when it's one-on-one, but when a group of them ambush you, it can be like a downright terrifying and scary experience.
Ew, oh my god! Oh, fucking get the fuck away from me! Oh shit. Where'd you go? Okay, I got you. You need the light. Yeah, you better back off. Come on. Oh shit, where'd it go? Fuck. Ooh, what is that? What's that sound?
What's even more impressive is how 4A Games managed to make the surface world even more scary than the claustrophobic tunnels. I didn't think that's possible. But these topside environments are breathtaking. Literally, as you have to wear a gas mask and manage your air canisters to survive in them.
We'll have to make do. Now come on, take what you need. We're all brothers in the metro. Hey, приятель, I could use a good watch like yours. Knowing how much air you got left is a must, huh? I've heard of things roaming around that even bullets can stop. You have been through some bad shit, I know, but not like what's coming.
The This is by far the best looking post-apocalyptic world I've ever played in. Unlike in, say, Fallout, where the environments, they just seem drab or boring. But here, they feel alive in some way. The water, the fog, the steam, burnt trees, the landscape, it's just incredible. Now, things turn violent as obviously you realize that you're no longer the top of the food chain up here, and you're attacked by winged ones and wolf-like beasts.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh shit! Oh, what the? What is?
That helm was bad luck. Get ready for
Yeah,
more.
no shit.
Another 3. Let's do it.
Where? Oh.
One down.
These are tough battles that have you getting knocked around, picked up like a rag doll and tossed several feet away.
Oh fuck! Oh shit! Oh fuck! Oh shit! Oh, I'm flying! Oh, not in the water! Oh my god! Put me down! Oh fuck! Oh my god, he is fucking. Oh shit! I can't see him.
You know, as you wipe blood and dirt and acid rain droplets from your mask with a button, in between these bits of intense action and frantic reloading, you never know what kind of manner of larger beast is roaming around, often stalking you.
Shit. What in damn hell? Oh fuck! Oh shit. Oh, great.
It also incorporates some psychological aspects to try to mess with your brain. RTM will see flashbacks. He'll be haunted by these dark figures.
Oh, shit. Oh, what the fuck is that? Oh, it's a hand. What the fuck? I'm not looking. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what you're talking about, man. Leave me alone, man. I'm just gonna come up against this wall, man. You should leave me alone, dude. Just leave me alone.
And he'll be going to places in the metro that seem completely unreal. Whether or not he's having hallucinations, losing his mind, or just being fed these images is unknown. But it does a great job at it. I actually felt a little bit of real paranoia whether I was unknowingly being led to my death by a particular character or not. And I questioned what was real and what wasn't real within the game. However, you can't see your legs, and when you look down, and RTM never speaks like ever outside the loading screens, which is just odd when he just stands there when people are like talking to him and having these one-sided conversations. It's just talking to themselves pretty much. Now, I didn't understand. If he talks in the loading screens, why can't he talk in the game? Now, I don't like mute protagonists anymore. Unless it's in a game where I can create my own custom character. I think if they had RTM interact and talk more, it would have been even better. Also, while I feel like the idea of eavesdropping on these natural conversations and just standing there, I think too much, I like that portion, but I think too much of the game's story is hidden in them and hidden in these collectible diary notes that are very interesting to read and they give a lot of context to the things. So I don't see why these things need to be hidden, you know? Another home run, though, for the game is its pitch-perfect sound design. It really helps sell the atmosphere, and smart players will begin to hear careful cues in the various mutant animals, and RTM will choke and gasp for air when he needs new air filters. When you are so perfectly immersed in a game like this, you'll just find yourself naturally looting every single body for ammunition, searching every nook and cranny of its admittedly linear but extremely detailed levels. You weigh heavily the options of upgrading your salvaged and piecemealed weapons with either damage boosters or silencers. You'll be exchanging pistol rounds for pellet rounds, for your unique pump-driven pneumatic weapons. All this kind of stuff is really cool to see, and it's unique in this game. Difficulty levels often provide very different experiences here. On easy, you're never going to have to worry about the ammunition in the game, okay? You can just gun your way through it. Let's rock!
You want some? You want a little? Come on. You want some? You like that? You like that? You want a little? Oh, come on. Come on, bring it. Bring it. That's right.
Now on medium, enemies are going to be smarter, but you never feel as if, you know, ammunition is low as you fight humans because you just constantly loot their bodies. However, for the stretches of the game that have you fighting the beasts, if you realize that you would have been better served mixing in some stealth, as I had found myself fending off a boss character with only one bullet left by the time I drove it away.
One bullet. That is awesome.
Only to be greeted by her and a few minions stuck with only one bullet, turning this challenging boss battle into a desperate knife fight, which was equal parts unfair and cheap feeling, but also one of the most intense and fun role-playing experiences that, like, I had cornered myself into by wasting my ammo.
What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Oh, holy fuck.
Now hard mode, and there is a hard mode in the game aside from ranger mode, I'll talk about that in a second, is it's even harder, ammo's harder to come by. Well, it makes the enemies a little bit easier to kill, but ammo is very rare. And so while you're tearing through endless packs on easy, you're not going to be doing the same thing on hard. Stealth is what you're going to need to be doing. And I actually love doing it here because it's great. Your watch gives you an indicator as to how much light is on you and whether you can be spotted. But it often feels hilarious or just outright stupid, like standing out in the open besides an enemy because they can't see you. That feels a little odd, you know, but you have to say that putting successive rounds of silenced ammunition into people's heads, it's just an endless source of entertainment. It also should be noted that at least at the time of this review, Metro had a few bugs. Frame rate would puzzlingly chug at times, even when I had it all in the lowest settings. When you have it at the highest settings, it's a system hog. A few characters would randomly stop leading me to an area where only they could progress the level forward. I had to make sure that I burned all the cobwebs with every single cobweb with my lighter in order to progress to the next area. Small things like this that don't ever take away from the game, as it does have a good checkpoint system which you can go back on, but I hope they get fixed soon. Now, I had to talk about it. Unfortunately, the publisher makes a mistake, and it may shadow some of the game's merits. What is insultingly marketed as the way the game was meant to be played in Ranger mode, which I wasn't even able to review as it's exclusive to pre-orders and will be available for $5 as DLC, a difficulty level. I refuse to pay for it, and you guys already know why. But Deep Silver released a statement saying that it was something that was actually decided last year by the former publisher THQ, and which has been active for pre-order outside of Steam, which tends to start pre-orders closer to launch, since that time. They quote, "By the time Deep Silver took over publishing duties, changing that within the time left to get the game ready, was no longer an option. Ranger mode as DLC like this is not something we would have chosen to do had we been in charge of publishing this title from the start, end quote. I hope that is in fact true, which is something we will keep an eye on in the future with Deep Silver, and not let this get out of control, because you have to draw the line somewhere. So let's not blame 4A Games, who very clearly worked their asses off on this game for us, but I still don't see why Deep Silver can't just simply admit that this practice is wrong and make it a timed exclusive as consolation, as a free DLC unlock a few weeks or a month later. That's the true sign of their honest beliefs. We'll see what's more important to them. Which brings me then to my final verdict, Metro Last Light, and this is going to be scored separately from that situation. It earns a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it that much. Last Light works so well because of its greatest strengths. Story, pacing, atmosphere, all of which are held up by interesting enemies, challenging combat, and just great level variety. The linear levels feel considerably less so when they're able to focus and tell a good story with strong writing as they did here. And while the game may be better as an open world, you never feel like the linearity ruins the experience here. Last Light will last you around 10 to 12 hours, and there is never a dull moment. Sure, they make a few missteps by playing to the immature crowd, the 14-year-old boys, by throwing in boobs just for boobs' sake. And maybe they could have improved the boss battles a bit more, giving the beasts, more than just the classic charge move. But overall, Metro Last Light accomplishes its goals with flying colors. Now realize that score doesn't, again, count the Ranger mode situation. I haven't decided to include that into scores but because of that, I cannot give it my badass seal of approval because of that stupid decision. Alright, and I would remember a time where we would joke saying pretty much they're gonna start charging you for difficulties and endings, and both have pretty much come true. So I urge you, with all my being, do not purchase the Ranger mode ever. Okay, vote with your wallet, guys. And if what Deep Silver says is true, then, whatever. We're moving on from that. Hopefully, future titles from 4A Games will not be forced by retailers to include something that they don't want to include. It would be a better game for it, okay? Because this franchise has the potential to be a 10 out of 10 first-person shooter. And I cannot wait for them to take the feedback and improvements and see what comes next. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show. Choo-choo! This train simulator is getting a ton of hype, and I'm here to see if it arrives at the station on time and green across the board. What? It's not a train simulator?